listeners. This is Ron Lanton, partner at Lanton Law. And this morning we are happy to have on our show Deb Rockwell. She's the business manager at Savage's Drug.
Good morning, Ron.
How are you?
Very good. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm glad you're able to join us today, and I'm looking forward to this conversation about accounts receivable. And it sounds like a very, one of those topics you're like, accounts receivable. And I think after talking to you and, really understanding how important this is, because I know a lot of pharmacies have some trouble with this topic. And I think this conversation is going to help bring some light to that. So before we dive in, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into pharmacy?
Sure. Well, I worked at an accounting firm for 18 years, and when I was there, I ended up working on Savage's Drugs books. And I started out when they started out in business and ended up, he needed so much help that he said, I need you to come to me full time. What do you think? And it was a hard decision to make, but I ended up coming on board with the pharmacies. And so I had no really background in the pharmacy world, and it is a different beast, if I could say. And it's been great. I started with Savage's Drugs in 2018, so getting a handle on understanding the pharmacy, and now that I am here doing his work for him.
And for those that don't know, Savage's Drug is Shane Savage, and you guys are up in Maine, right?
Yes, we are. Yes, great place to be,
That's
especially in the summertime.
well, yeah. In fact, I just came back from vacation up there in Kennebunkport, and it was great. So,
Oh, that's a nice area to be along the
yeah,
coast. It's just so breathtaking, the water and the rock and the cliffs, and we've had good temperatures. We have a little bit of humidity, but I'll take that compared to, other places around the world that are really, really having a hard time with this humidity.
yeah. Well, there's Maine humidity, which I'll take any day, and then there's Florida humidity, which I won't take every day.
Yes,
And you guys are in Fairfield, right?
yes. I'm based out of Fairfield, but we do have a pharmacy in Unity and one in Oakland.
Awesome. Very good. So let's dive into this accounts receivable discussion. And it's good to finally talk to somebody like you because I talk a lot to business owners and things. And, we talk about kind of high level stuff and PBMs and things that are a threat to the industry, but not really so much about the operations of a pharmacy. So, my first question to you is, does your pharmacy use a third party to do your AR reconciliation?
Yes, we're currently using NetRx to reconcile our AR, and I'm just trying to get a handle and understand all of our accounts receivable, because when you're doing books for businesses like, say, a store or some other type of entity, it's totally different. You send out an invoice for $5,000, you get paid $5,000. When I came on to work with Shane in the pharmacy world, and now diving deeper into his accounts receivable, you may send out an invoice or a bill for 5,000, and you might get paid half that. There's all kinds of adjustments on top of the final invoice, and you don't really have any control over that. So that's been a struggle with trying to accurately post a number on your books. What is the right number? It's always a moving target. So, yeah.
Is there an explanation for why that happens?
Well, there are DIR fees that are hitting these. There are possibly, rejections that the script isn't going to get paid. Um, I'm just really trying to figure out what other avenues that I don't have knowledge on, because I'm not from that pharmacy world, and trying to talk with other owners or accounting people that are dealing with AR and how they're reconciling their accounts receivable if they're not using a third party vendor. I just attended the RBC conference and I kept trying to meet people. And what I shouldn't say, when I met someone, I said, how do you handle your AR? And they're like, oh, we really, I don't want to say don't, but they didn't have the information that I was looking for because they all know it's a moving target and they have other issues that they're focusing their time on, because I was mostly meeting with pharmacy owners and pharmacists, and there's a lot when running a pharmacy. So I can understand that. And I just am hoping by doing this podcast with you that we get some input from other accountants or bookkeepers that are working with these numbers for their pharmacies.
Yeah, I definitely think we will because, when I have specific questions to other pharmacies and I ask them, well, do you have somebody like a Deb or somebody that understands how to keep the books for a pharmacy? And most of the owners say, well, my accountant, I have an accountant, but they don't really understand my business. And I'm like, well, God, there's got to be somebody out there that, I can talk to about this, or owners can talk to. And it's kind of like a black box, which I just really don't understand how anybody's keeping anything.
Exactly. That was kind of the reply that I would get from people at the conference. Oh, I just give it to my accountant. And it's really, like you said, a black box, because you give them this number, but say it was on December 31st, you received a Caremark check or some other PBM check, and it could have been for $70,000. So now your AR takes a dip, or your AR is really high because the check didn't come in until January 2nd. So I don't know. And then DIR fees, they come back anywhere 6 months later after the claim has already been paid.
Yeah.
And then they come back and say, okay, well, we're going to take out these DIR fees. So DIR fees could have been from last year. So do you go back and adjust your taxes? Do you put it on this year? Do you divide that number out by 12 months and take a portion every single month? Not sure. So yeah, just trying to figure out some of
Yeah,
these issues.
I don't blame you. And I know we were going to talk about DIR fees a little bit later in this, but we might as well talk about them now because I can't think of one thing that is not as transparent. I mean, well, the DIR fees just aren't transparent at all.
Correct.
I'm glad that CMS has taken a step forward to try to resolve the issue of DIR fees. I
Correct.
know that's kind of, everyone's thinking, well, gee, I wonder what they're going to do next. They'll just do something like, they'll call it ABC fee or, whatever. But when it comes to these elusive fees, how and when do you record your DIR fees?
Well, I'm kind of relying on my third party reconciliation because I'm getting reports at the end of the month, and they have taken out some of these items. They'll start with your beginning AR, and then they'll add your sales into it, and then they pick up any ignored claims, and then take out what you've archived for checks, meaning what you've received during the month, and then there's a line for any check adjustments, and then it has your new ending balance. So I'm relying on them, and maybe I'm wrong. And like I said, I started in 2018, and there was a lot to get my understanding on. Yes, I was doing the books, but that was a small portion of what I was doing for Shane. And now here I am in the position of business manager, where I'm doing some HR, I'm doing, payroll, paying the bills, accounts payable, accounts receivable, and now trying to find time to figure out a true AR number. We had to get a handle on our 340B. That we have a handle on now. But all of these things are affecting your books, and just would like to get some type of confirmation that, yeah, you are doing it okay, you're doing it right, this is what we're doing, and go from there.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned it. You hit it right on the head. It's like you've got all these other things that you're running around with, and now you got this on your plate with DIR fees, and it's just like, my God, I don't know how.
Right. Now I'm finding, okay, I think I've gotten things settled in my job, and now let's start attacking these different areas and digging in deeper.
Yeah. Because it's almost like you have to chase not every dollar, but every penny now because of what's happening. And if you're not on it, you can find yourself in a world of trouble really quick.
I agree. I
Yeah.
agree.
Well, then, speaking of that, if your PSAO is a good source, or let's just say, you've never called your PSAO, or I don't know, you just don't talk to them for whatever reason, is there another way to find out about DIR fees? Like, can you go somewhere else?
I don't think so. I don't know, and I welcome any other information, but generally it's what's on my PSAO. I'll go in and look and see, because they have it scheduled out as to when they're going to be taking back those fees. So I am using them for my DIR fees. There could be another one that I don't have knowledge of, that I should be looking at, but
Yeah,
that's where I'm coming from.
that's the question. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if your pharmacy does not use a third party for AR reconciliation, then what's the process for reconciling your AR?
Well, I've talked with a few people, and what they do is they're just taking an Excel sheet and they're putting down what their sales are, and they are subtracting their payments and recording it that way. Basic, basic, basic. So, I don't know if they feel that's a better number that they're deriving, or they just haven't found someone that they have confidence in that can reconcile their AR for them.
God, that sounds that
I,
sounds like a recipe for errors, right? I'm like,
I agree. That's why I was like, are you serious? And they said, yeah, no, we just put it on an Excel sheet, and here's our sales. And now this is what we got paid. And that's what our outstanding AR is. Like, oh, I'm not ready to do that.
yeah,
Nope,
wow.
I like a little more order, a little more system, a little further explanations of, here's your ignored claims, here's what you've really archived, because yes, you have sales for the month, but you have received some of those payments as well during that same month. So it doesn't get really added to your AR, because it's not what's outstanding at the end of the month. So it really comes in and goes out. So you really have to have a line for that. And it's probably people that have been doing this for quite some time. So that feel comfortable by doing this.
So, kind of along the lines of this question, what are the benefits or drawbacks? Because I see a lot of stuff here to reconciling AR in house.
Well, I think they are reconciling it as a number. They're not looking at 30, 60, 90 days. They're just looking at it in whole, because that would be really quite confusing if they started putting their, like an Excel sheet of, okay, on my left column, I'm going to write all my, payers down, and then I'm going to chart it out. That's a full-time job. So, but then they have, I guess maybe they feel more control over it, and know that this is what's come in, this is what I've filled out. Yeah. So haven't talked to, I've only talked to a couple other people, and that they do it this way. And I wasn't ready to switch over to that. I kind of like someone else doing the majority of the work for me, and getting a number that is working for me, that I feel, I've been doing it for 3 years this way with this company, and I have my previous year's numbers, and they all, you do have ups and downs, and you can really see the flow on the chart.
It's wow. Because obviously when as you're an independent pharmacy, I mean, most independent pharmacists don't have big staff, you know?
Right, right,
And
right.
I'm listening to what you're saying and I'm just like, huh, like I wonder how this is getting done.
You know, I really don't know how many people they're devoting to it. I'm sure it's just one. But then again, you know, a lot of independents, these are my sales, and they give it to their accountant. They give it to their accountant to do monthly, possibly. You know, they don't want to do their books. That's when Shane first started out. He didn't want to do his books. He gave it to the accountant,
Yeah.
and we really, I had no clue really what AR was. He had one person in house doing a hand chart because they were doing it in house, and he would give me a number, and we would always say something doesn't look right, something doesn't look right, but you have all kinds of other avenues that you're chasing down, and AR is just one number in the scheme of things.
Yeah.
It's an important number,
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
important.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I'm here trying to get a better handle on it.
I hear you. Well, let me ask you one last question before I get to your contact information here, because I'm sure that people that are listening to this are definitely having similar issues. I can't imagine how it's not happening. So we'll get to that. But what other factors do you take into consideration when adjusting your AR balance?
That's a really good point. Um, you know, we look at, of course, the DIR fees. We look at any other adjustments or reversals that have come in. And then, you start having to write off what's over in the 90 or 120-day column. These fees, the actual, um, oh, I'm trying to think. Mine went blank. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
The copay that some of these patients are supposed to be paying, you know, they don't end up paying them. So you end up having to take that off. And you just have to really be looking at this and adjusting it out, because you'll have an overinflated number if you never take any of these claims out.
Hmm.
And there's a lot of claims that remain uncollectible for some reason. I mean, yes, I work with the third party and they'll only go so far. And then they'll say, well, we've contacted them, and, where do you go from there? So it can become a full-time job. And I do have other things that I have to do. So I put as much time as I can into this, and I have to move on, because how much is it really worth tracking and chasing these things?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think this conversation goes to show that there is so much more to a pharmacy than, the stereotypical perception of, well, they just count pills all day. I mean, no, they take care of patients, but after they're done and the patients are all out the door, this is the kind of stuff that's left. And with the DIR fees and all of this stuff, and it's a lot to juggle. And I've started to learn a lot more about this side of the business. As I've gotten more involved with different pharmacies, and margins, operating margins are the key, and to protect that stuff, this is the kind of conversation you're going to have with yourself. And I am glad that you were able to come on here and at least talk about some of the things that you're dealing with when it comes to this black box. And I know other people are feeling your pain.
It's a little difficult for me, Ron, because I don't come from the pharmacy world. I come from the accounting world where you invoice somebody and you get paid that. So I want to know what I'm missing. There was no one here to train me to do this job. I'm just learning as I go. And so I'm reaching out to people trying to find out, what am I missing? So I welcome any contacts that people, or questions that they may have, or help. for this, because it's a lot easier to do when you have other people than it is by yourself.
Yeah, definitely. Well, how do they get a hold of you, by the way?
You can either call me at the pharmacy, 207-453-4411, or you can email me at ufo2018@yahoo.com. That really stands for Unity Fairfield and Oakland.
I always wondered that. And I'm like,
Yeah,
no.
I get so many questions on that. And Shane was like, give me a short and sweet email address. So I said UFO, Unity Fairfield Oakland.
Nice. I like that. Well, now I know what that is.
Yes.
Well, that was Deb Rockwell, business manager at Savage's Drug. Thank you so much for this discussion. And hopefully, we'll have a part two to this at some point where, pharmacy owners have reached out or you found the right person and you're able to pass some more knowledge on to our listeners.
I think that'd be a great second topic. Yep.
I
We
think
can
so
follow
too.
back up with some different questions or even answers to some of these questions on what I found out.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's what this is about. So thank you for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you too, Ron, and you have a great day.